Hello and welcome to the Strong, Healthy, Happy podcast. My name is Deborah. I'm here for a very impromptu episode. I record a live Q&A to my clients every week. And one of the questions that I got asked was how to manage and stay on track with your goals during the heat wave. So in the UK, we have experienced a heat wave. We've got a little bit of light relief at the moment, but another one is due very soon next week. And I thought it would be really helpful to record this as a podcast so everybody can benefit, and I would upload it as a podcast. Now, talking of the heat, if you can hear any background noise, I have got my office windows open and I also have the office door open because it's so hot in here. So I hope that you don't hear any background noise. And at the moment, my neighbours, the kids, are not playing in the garden, which means that there's no background noise there. So I'm going to crack on and give you some really helpful tips to help you stay on track during the heat wave. So I've put them into like points and categories. There's about 8 of them. And I think they're going to be really helpful because I know that it's very unusual for us to have this type of weather in the UK. But I also know that we have very changeable weather in the UK. And it's very easy for the weather and the climate and the conditions to affect our goals, whether it's too hot, too cold, snowing, raining. And we can't let all these different climates and conditions affect our goals. Otherwise, we'll probably never step out the front door. The perfect conditions are very far and few between. So the first thing that I want to talk about is adjusting your expectations, not your goals. So yes, it's been extremely hot and it is going to be extremely hot. Or maybe you're listening to this and it's currently you're sweating and it's extremely hot. What I don't want you to do is say to yourself, my God, I'll start again when the weather cools down, because that's putting your goals on hold and it just delays you taking small, consistent steps towards how you want to feel and the goal you have. So I want you to adjust your expectations. It might be that you do a little less than you normally do. So it's more about doing what you can, doing shorter workouts if you need to, if it's just all a bit too much. You might do shorter walks. Remember, movement is good movement. And it's about trying to be consistent and accepting that you can only do what you can. Now, what's really important, which brings me on to point number 2, is about being flexible with your timing, because it is not going to be a great time to go for a walk in the heat of the day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, possibly the worst time to go. So it's about, you may have your normal routine and maybe that works for you. However, when the climate starts to make you feel low energy, very lethargic, and it's everything just feels 100 times harder, you have to be flexible with your timing. It might mean that your normal afternoon walk might need to happen very early morning or even much, much later in the evening when temperatures start to cool. Yes, it might mean that you're getting up early, but at least you'll get up early and you'll get it done. I also personally, one of my favorites, think walking after the evening meal is a really nice time to get out. Not only does it help digestion, it also takes you away from your food environment at home by just taking you out for the walk. And I know for a lot of women, especially and myself, is after dinner, you've had your savory dinner, you're almost thinking straight away, now I need something sweet. So kind of has a really good positive double-edged sword going out after your evening meal, because it puts that pause in place. Not that you can't have something sweet, but it just gives you that time to actually reevaluate whether you actually really want it. And when I went out in the recent heat wave in the evening, there were so many people out walking. It was actually quite sociable as well. You might also need to accept that your workouts might need to be shorter or less intense or with less volume, that you don't do as much, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're failing or falling behind or gonna ruin things. It just means that you're adjusting and being flexible and adjusting those expectations, but without taking you further back, because these small, consistent actions represent you still showing up for yourself, even if they've been modified, even if you've been flexible with your timing. Now, point number 3, and this is a really big one, is hydration. Are you drinking enough? Because you get busy, or you're working, or you're in air-conditioned offices, and the need for hydration escapes you because you're in an air-conditioned climate if you're in an office, or sometimes you mistake thirst for hunger and you eat but actually don't drink. Now, as a really rough guide, in fact, before I tell you the rough guide to how much water you need, what I would say to you is the best indicator of your hydration levels is the color of your wee, right? So when you go to the toilet and you do a wee, go and look at the color of your urine. You're looking for a pale straw yellow color. The darker the yellow, hopefully not brown, the darker the color indicates that you're dehydrated. You want it a pale straw yellow. So if your wee is not pale straw yellow, you need to increase your hydration. I always like to have I have like a Robinson's bottle of squash diluted and filled up. And then I have my favorite cup or water bottle that I like to drink out of. But sometimes your water bottle may not be actually quite big enough and you don't want to lug around those huge ones. So on my desk, I have like a Robinson's orange squash bottle already filled with diluted drink. You could, if you're at home or you're in an office, you could keep it in the fridge, but it's easily accessible to just top up your own water bottle if it is on the smaller side. Now, as a rough guide, and this isn't for really hot weather conditions, this is just a rough guide, that for every foot you are in height, you want to be drinking half a litre for every foot. So I'm 5 foot, so I would need to drink 2.5 litres a day. Now, as it happens, I probably drink closer to 3-4 litres a day. That's just what I do. I've done that for years. But if I was drinking what's sort of recommended, I would still increase that. Because you are sweating more, you're losing fluid, and it will, there's nothing better than feeling hydrated, and there's nothing worse than feeling dehydrated. Now, if you're doing intense exercise sessions and you are sweating a lot, it might be worth you having some electrolytes for that gym session or the run or whatever it is that you're doing. But you certainly don't need electrolytes every day. It is not needed. Electrolytes only come with intense exercise and for a duration of time. So please don't use electrolytes just in day-to-day life, because taking on board additional salt can be harmful, and most of the population actually have too much salt. So you don't want to be adding to that by increasing your salt levels via electrolytes. What you can do if you're eating a whole food diet is salt your food. You'd be better off doing that. But the bottom line that I want to really emphasize here is drink water. If you need to put squash in it, I live off squash, sugar-free squash, or just make your water more appetizing with mint and cucumber, whatever rocks your boat, do it. It's absolutely fine. Now, I know that you might come in from a long day at work and you're looking to crack open a nice cold bottle of rosé. And what I would say is, whilst it might sound really appealing, alcohol does increase your dehydration levels. So I would reduce alcohol during the really intense heat and for general health. The other thing I want to just add, this is point number 4, is heat affects your performance. So you might notice that your energy levels are lower, or what you were doing before, or what you were lifting in terms of weights in your workouts, you just don't have it in you. And it's not because you've regressed. It's not because you're unfit. It's because it's in the 30-degree bracket of heat. And with the heat, your heart rate increases, your perceived effort levels feel higher, your paces just feel a bit more heavier and slower, weights that you're lifting feel heavier, and it's perfectly normal. Give yourself permission to reduce that intensity, volume, and take longer rest periods as well. Point number 5. God, and this is one I can 100% relate to, is sleep. It's just too hot, right, to get to sleep. But there are a few things, practical tips you can do. And that is if your room faces the sun or the sun comes into your room later in the day, especially in that late afternoon, draw your curtains. Don't even open them in the morning. Keep them closed. Keep it cool. Keep your windows open so you've got some air. And I'm really big on having like a through air. So if my bedroom windows are open, I need other people's windows to be open and the doors open so we have some through breeze. You could also, if especially if you're, in midlife and you're also struggling with menopause symptoms, might be worth having a nice cool shower before you go to bed. And I like to prepare my room way before I go to bed. Nice bedside lamp, lights off, curtains are pulled, nice and aired, bed sort of turned back, so that it's a bit more inviting when I go up to bed. You might also want to take your duvet off, replace it with some lighter bedding, whether that may be a summer duvet or just a light sheet. Think about how you can keep cooler and support your sleep a bit better. It's also worth noting that poor sleep quality, and that can be just one night, can affect you the following day in terms of your energy, your motivation, your recovery, and it can also impact your feeling of hunger, your cravings, and also your ability to feel more satisfied after you have managed to eat something. So what I don't want is that poor sleep derails you during a heat wave. We need to try and look for ways as best as we can to manage the heat and get some decent sleep. And it's worth putting in here as well, if you know that you go to bed scrolling on your phone, give yourself a little bit of wind down time, some deep breathing, play something nice and relaxing on Spotify, put the timer on so it goes off automatically and you hopefully can fall asleep to it. But scrolling and stimulation from screen and seeing what everyone's been doing during their day on social media is really not going to help you get into a relaxed state to support your sleep. The next point that I also want to talk about is your food choices. So during the heat wave, it's often your appetite gets affected. You have less appetite. Along with that, like who wants to cook a hot meal over, with a hot oven or a hot hob or however you cook your food? It's really hard so you have to change the food types that you're looking to eat. So I think lighter foods, more salads, wraps, and make your salads really interesting. Add to it, just open up a tin of beans, pulses, or lentils. You could also use pre-cooked packet rice. That way you just might microwave it and that you're not cooking over heat. You might even do a jacket potato, stick it in the microwave. But you want to think about lighter meats, lighter, fish, tuna, and just lighter meals that aren't, the heavy foods that it's on a hot day. You may not want a spag bowl. You might fancy more of a chicken salad, ham and boiled egg salad, something light, cottage cheese, Greek yogurts, fruits. There is a vast array of fruit out in the supermarkets at the moment. Get adventurous. I usually cut up a whole watermelon, a pineapple and other fruit and make a huge fruit salad. And then the whole family have just easy, accessible fruit that's already cut up, because there's nothing more appealing, in my opinion, of cut up fruit. You can store it in a airtight Tupperware tub or glass dish with a lid, and then you've always got nice fresh fruit on hand. I also like frozen fruit. I particularly like frozen berries. You can make use your frozen berries with some whey protein powder and just some water, but not too much. And then you've got a nice thick shake or ice cream type shake, and they're really refreshing and cool in the heat and high in protein. The other thing to watch with a low appetite is you might be distracted during the day, plus it's hot, you've lost your appetite. But I would definitely try and stick to eating regular meals, even if they're smaller. I would still prioritize protein, make it lighter, like I've spoken about. Easy options, don't get fancy. And something I do is I make a huge bowl of salad so that I make it for the day. And, I can have it, there's enough for lunch, there's enough for dinner, there's enough for whoever else wants. And just get it all in a really big bowl. And then you're not chopping and preparing, all day for every meal. The other reason why you don't want to skip food all day is because invariably at some point it will catch up with you. You'll be watching TV, your mind starts to wander, and you're grabbing, the snacks and the easy to grab things out your cupboard. They're usually the less healthy things. They're actually usually as well quite high in calorie, and before you know it, you've overconsumed. That's going to leave you feeling lethargic, and on top of the hot weather, it's not going to be a great recipe for you feeling good in yourself. So just again, be flexible with your meals, adjust them, make them lighter, make them nutritious, make them colorful, and make them really easy without doing any hot cooking. Focus on what matters most. So it's not about doing things perfectly. I talk about this a lot, about being perfect, but we always try to do things like perfect, but really being accepting that it's not about being perfect. It's really just about being consistent in as much as you possibly can during the challenging heat wave or whatever conditions that you might be facing, whether they be the weather or any of life's challenges. Focus on what matters most. Focus on, especially during the heat wave, hydration, movement, being flexible, supporting your sleep as much as you possibly can, doing small things, being as consistent as possible, including protein, lighter sources. You don't want to put your health your health goals on hold until the weather changes, because that's just you and you're stalling on your goals and setting yourself back. Just adjust how you approach them as opposed to putting them on hold. Now, the other thing to really, really focus on here is your progress during the heat wave. If you're someone who weighs themselves, you may notice a fluctuation in your scales, in the scale weight. If you take body measurements, my God, everything's looking, the measurements have gone up. You're feeling bloated. Your rings feel tighter. Your ankles and your feet feel swollen and throbbing. Your clothes feel tighter. Just everything just doesn't feel great. And you haven't gained body fat. You may think you have, but you haven't. And it certainly isn't going to happen like overnight or after a couple of nights with the hot weather. You have not gained body fat. In reality, it's probably water retention. And that's because it's hot. Your body's working really, really hard to regulate its temperature. And as a result, there's changes in your fluid balance, maybe some water retention, mild swelling, you're feeling thirstier, and just generally it's going to come down to the heat wave, the hot weather, and hydration. So do keep drinking. And just remember, when the weather settles back down again, if you've been consistent, everything will move back in the direction that it's supposed to go, because you've been consistent and you've been adjusting and taking on board all the feedback from this podcast episode. I really do hope that this has helped you. And the main message, well, there's loads of messages. I've read them all out. I'm not even going to recap them. I just want to finish with not to put your goals on hold because of the heat wave. Be open to change, be flexible with your approach, and adjust your expectations. And I hope this has been really, really helpful. If there's anything else I can help you with, or you're not already following or subscribed to my podcast, please, please, please do, because I have some great episodes recorded. There's 128 episodes now, and there's going to be many that resonate with you. So do look through them. Share my podcast with your friends. I want to try, and the more that there's shares and follows and subscribers, it brings the attention of my podcast to more women. And this podcast is all about helping as many women as possible. Thank you so much, and I will catch up with you on the next one.